Hello, my name is Gladys Sanchez, and I am the WIOA Title I Youth Career Advisor here in Pender County. Today, I'm going to be presenting on the FAFSA basics, just basic information about the FAFSA application, and this presentation is being co-hosted with Pender County Library. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to quickly run through our agenda. So today we're going to be discussing cost of attendance, FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, expected family contribution, and FAFSA verification. So I thought it was really important to discuss cost of attendance when discussing ways to pay for college and also the FAFSA, because a lot of times we get confused with cost of attendance. Sometimes when we go on college websites, they show us a cost of attendance that's like crazy high. It's a huge sticker price. And really, the cost of attendance that's publicized on a college website is inaccurate. It's only an estimate. And so it's not the real cost of attendance for each individual student. The cost of attendance for each student may be different depending on their direct and indirect costs. And so also we need to note that cost of attendance is not what we pay to the actual college, because the cost of attendance brings together direct and indirect costs. But really, we're only paying to the college direct cost. So we want to make sure we understand cost of attendance and how to read those sticker prices when we're looking at tuition and fees and other expenses on the college website. So direct costs are things such as your tuition, your room and board and meals if you live on campus at a four-year school, your required fees like your tech fees, your book fees, or not book fees, but like tech fees and transportation fees, parking fees, and then also books and supplies. Indirect costs are things such as travel expenses, health insurance, personal expenses, day-to-day costs, such as, the Chick-fil-A sandwich you buy at the cafeteria or something like that. Those are indirect costs. And so we need to understand that direct cost is what we pay to the college at the beginning of the semester or through payments. And indirect costs are things that come out of our pocket for our personal expenses. These two combined are what most colleges call cost of attendance. And so these costs do vary widely from institution to institution. And so I want to give you an example of what it looks like on a college website, and then also what the direct and indirect costs are for a specific college. So I actually went onto the Cape Fear Community College website and pulled this example straight from their website. And this is the cost of attendance while living with parents. And you can find the same graphic on their website. So they have that direct costs are tuition and fees, books and supplies, and they total up to be $3,716. They also have on their website room and board expenses, transportation expenses, and miscellaneous expenses. And so those can total up to be, with tuition and fees, books and supplies, up to $14,162. $14,000 is not what we're paying to Cape Fear. It only gives us an estimate of what our direct and indirect costs would be for one school year at Cape Fear Community College. So again, our direct costs are tuition and fees and books and supplies, and this is what we would be specifically paying to the college. Our other expenses, room and board, transportation, and miscellaneous, are things that we are paying ourselves out of pocket for our own personal expenses. So room and board, Cape Fear Community College has posted that room and board can typically be around $4,382 if we are living with our parents. But this all depends on your own situation. If you live at home with your parents and you're a commuter student to Cape Fear, you may not be paying $4,382 to live with your parents. You may be paying less, you may be paying zero, you may be even paying a little bit more if you're contributing more to the bills and to expenses of living in the home with your parents. Transportation, this can also fluctuate depending on where you live, how far you live from the college, and then also just like your expenses if you're paying for a transportation service or if you're driving yourself. For the most part, if you're a commuter student from Pender County going to Cape Fear Community College every day, you most likely will not spend $2,800 a year in gas. unless you're buying a plane ticket and flying across country to go to college. That's typical, $2,800 is pretty excessive. And so just know that this number can fluctuate. And then miscellaneous, these are things like your meals, anything that else that you buy that's related to your schooling, but it's your personal expense. This can also fluctuate. And so we just need to make sure that we understand direct and indirect costs and what we're actually paying to the college. Now we're going to continue to break down the breakdown. And so we're going to continue to use our example of Cape Fear Community College cost of attendance living with parents. And we're going to discuss each of the items that Cape Fear Community College has posted on their website as a cost. So tuition and fees is $2,116 per year in state. This doesn't change. This is an amount that is set by the state, and the North Carolina General Assembly says this is how much you can charge as a community college in North Carolina. You can't charge any more, you can't charge any less. This is set. Books and supplies, $1,600. This again, we may be paying straight to the college if you're buying student textbooks at the bookstore. But this can also this kind of is on the line of a direct and indirect cost, because if you're buying your books at the student bookstore, then yes, you're giving money to the college. But sometimes it's more advantageous to look for your books and your supplies elsewhere. And so, for example, Cape Fear Community College here has posted that it's about $1,600 a year for books and supplies. But if you're buying used books or renting your books on Amazon, on Chegg, on textbooks.com, or any other bookstore that's local, you can actually buy books used or rent them for a lot cheaper than what you would have to spend at the bookstore if you were buying them new. So definitely take advantage of other places to buy your used books and or rent your books, because it's going to save you a lot of money. And then room and board, this can also change. It can be less, it could be more. I kind of already explained that. This is dependent on your expenses living at home, and if you have any. Transportation, this will definitely be less. I honestly not really sure where Cape Fear Community College gets this number of $2,800, because that's a plane ticket to like Europe or Asia, like I don't know. And so $2,800, if you're literally just driving back and forth to the college, it's going to be a lot less. It's going to be between $300 $500, depending on what kind of car you drive or what kind of transportation service you use. Perhaps the $2,800 that Cape Fear Community College posts is if your car breaks down, car cost, oil changes. It may be those kinds of things, but really it really depends on your situation. So this can definitely be a lot less. Miscellaneous, this can be less as well. Again, this is depending on your needs as a student. And so if you are packing your lunch every day, and not buying food at the cafeteria, you're taking your snacks. And so that can reduce the amount of money you're spending at the cafeteria, or if you're making your own coffee and not buying coffee, these are things that can be a lot less depending on your needs as a student. So all of that totals up to $14,162, but in reality, that can be very different for each student. And for the most part, community college is very affordable, and it's typically around less than $4,000 or $5,000 a year to attend a community college in North Carolina if you're an in-state student. And those are your direct costs. So now we're going to move on to learn how to submit your FAFSA. So for the next school year, if you're planning, so right now it's January 2021. If you're planning to go to school in the fall, you want to submit your 2021-2022 FAFSA. I first want to explain what is the FAFSA before we move on how to submit one. So the FAFSA is a free application for federal student aid, and it is an online application that is run through the U.S. Department of Education. And the FAFSA also contains several other programs besides the famous Pell Grant. So federal student aid programs that are run by the Department of Education are the Pell Grant, the student loans, and college work study program. So I'm going to describe each one. The Pell Grant is a grant that if you qualify for the Pell Grant based off the information that you submitted on your FAFSA, you can qualify for this grant, and it can be used to pay for your college costs, your tuition and fees and books. But this is free money. You don't have to pay this back. So you always want to accept your Pell Grant if you received one. Student loans, there's subsidized and unsubsidized loans. So the federal subsidized loan is a loan that you can take out if you qualify for it after and pay for it after you graduate college. And it only accrues interest after you graduate. So, for example, I qualified for a $200 loan, $200 subsidized loan. But I'm like, well, I only really need $100 more to finish paying all of my my tuition, so I'm only going to take out $100. And so I actually don't have to pay those $100 back until after I graduate from college, and it only will start accruing interest until after I graduate college. Your federal unsubsidized loan does accrue interest while in college. So, for example, I qualified, usually unsubsidized loans are a lot larger than subsidized loans. So, let's say I qualified for a $3,000 unsubsidized loan, but I only take out $500 because that's all I need. I don't need more than that. So I take out my $500 unsubsidized loan, and this loan does accrue interest while I'm in college. So it is very possible that though I took out a $500 unsubsidized loan, that the day that I graduate from college, my loan will be probably $700 at that point because it was accruing interest while I was in school. Lastly, the college work study program. This is basically a this is basically an on-campus job. So if you wanted to work at the library or at the college gym or in the admissions office, you can take advantage of the college work study program if you qualify. There is a specific question on the FAFSA about being interested in the work study program. You always want to select yes. Usually work study programs and on-campus jobs are really good for any student because it is very flexible with the student schedule. And this is money that does come into your account. It's not money that is taken that you work for and then pay for your tuition fees and books. When you have an on-campus job, it's like a normal job. You get that money in your bank account or as a check, and that money is yours to use for your personal expenses, or if you have tuition payments that you have to make, you can use it for that. But that money comes to you, doesn't go to the college. And one big distinction that I do want to make about the FAFSA is a lot of people mention that I didn't get anything from FAFSA or FAFSA didn't give me anything. It's important to know that FAFSA does not give anything to anybody. You only are being told if you qualify for anything. So, for example, if I got a subsidized loan and unsubsidized loan, and FAFSA tells me that I qualify for these loans, it doesn't mean that I have to take it. I never have to take out a loan if I don't want to. And really the same thing with the Pell Grant or the College Work Study Program. Just because you got the Pell Grant or just because you qualified for the College Work Study Program doesn't mean you have to accept it. Obviously, the Pell Grant is free money, so we always want to take out the Pell Grant or get the Pell Grant. On the College Work Study Program, unless you already have an awesome part-time job away from campus, you can say, well, no, I don't want to participate in the College Work Study Program. But it's important to know that you qualify for it. So you always want to select yes on the FAFSA when asked about the work study program. And so now we're going to move on to discuss how to submit a FAFSA application. And the steps that we're going to talk about are very basic steps. The FAFSA is very unique to each student, and it can be submitted in different ways. And the information that can be submitted can be different for every student. So the basic steps are to go to fsaid.ed.gov, and you want to create an FSA ID. So an FSA ID is a unique login that you can use to start your FAFSA. but it's also utilized as an electronic signature. Whenever you are ready to submit your FAFSA, the FAFSA will ask for your electronic signature. And the electronic signature will just be your FSA ID. It'll just be your login. But you want to make sure that you have this FSA ID login in a safe and secure place and that you don't use it, because you will be submitting the FAFSA every single year that you're in college. And then once you've created your own FSA ID, you're going to go back into that same website and make sure that if you are a dependent student, that one of your parents also creates an FSA ID. So we're going to later discuss what makes you a dependent or independent student. But if you know that you're a dependent student, you're a senior, you live with your parents, and you're going off to college in the fall, you want to make sure that only one of your parents creates an FSID. Both of your parents do not have to create an FSID, only one. If one important thing to know is if your parent does not have a social security number, they will not be able to create an FSA ID. Again, the FSA ID is an electronic signature. So at the end of the FAFSA, or at the end of your FAFSA application when you're ready to submit, it will ask for a parent signature as well. Obviously, if your parent has an FSA ID, they will use that as their electronic signature. But like I mentioned, if they don't have a social security number, you will, instead of signing with an FSA ID, you will have to print out a signature page, have it signed, and then you're going to have to mail it to FAFSA headquarters. And so once you've created the FSA IDs for you and one of your parents, then you will finally go to fafsa.ed.gov and then click on logging in and starting the 2021-2022 FAFSA. You're going to enter your personal information, select your school choices, so all of the schools that you're applying to, and then submit all applicable parent information on the FAFSA. One of the main things on the FAFSA is a data retrieval tool. The data retrieval tool is something that was created both by the U.S. Department of Education in conjunction with the IRS. It's a neat tool that parents and students can use to bring over all of their income information and tax information over from the IRS website onto the FAFSA application. It's really important that you use a data retrieval tool if possible, because it's the easiest way to complete the FAFSA. And also, it's the best way for colleges to know that the information you input onto the FAFSA is correct because it comes straight from the IRS website. Let's say, for example, that I am working on my FAFSA and I get to the data retrieval tool section. I go onto the IRS website and I put in all of my information and then, search for my information. Sometimes it will not work. It'll tell me error, we couldn't find anything. And so you have to keep trying. And then also, if it doesn't work for you, but you know that you submitted your tax information to the IRS, maybe just save your information, log out, and come back to it another day. Sometimes it's just a glitch in the system and it really just needs to, it just needs some time. And so hopefully by the next time that you try it, it'll work. You want to make sure that you use a data retrieval tool at all costs if possible. If you don't use a data retrieval tool, you will have to enter your information manually, which can be a little bit more difficult, and the college may end up requiring more information on your behalf if you don't use a data retrieval tool. With the data retrieval tool, just a quick tip on the data retrieval tool, the information that you insert onto the IRS website to find your information needs to match your tax return. So if my tax return says I live at 123 Smith Lane, and then I go onto the IRS website and submit that I live at 123 Smith Road, I need to make sure that I'm putting what's on the tax return and not what I actually know is my address. So even though my address is 123 Smith Road, I need to put on the data retrieval tool exactly what's on the tax return. So technically, based on my tax return, I actually live at 123 Smith Lane. So you want to make sure that all of the spellings are exactly like it is on your tax return in order to be able to use the data retrieval tool successfully. Lastly, once you've got all your information onto the FAFSA, you're going to complete and submit your 2021-22 FAFSA. Make sure that for this 2021-22 school year that you are utilizing 2019 tax information. The FAFSA utilizes, every single year, the FAFSA utilizes prior year information. So I am, like, for example, I'm going to be a May 2021 graduate from high school. I'm submitting my FAFSA. I need to make sure that I'm utilizing 2019 tax information. So now we're going to discuss um, who is a dependent student and who is an independent student, as well as who is my parent on the FAFSA if I am a dependent student. So I'm gonna go through what it means to be independent or dependent. If you're an independent student, I'm gonna actually run down through 10 questions. If you don't answer yes to any of the questions above, you're still considered a dependent student for purposes of applying for federal student aid, even if you don't live with your parents and are not claimed by your parents on their tax returns or are paying for your own bills and educational expenses. So again, this is really important. If you don't answer yes to any of these questions, you are a dependent student no matter your situation. So even if you don't live with your parents, even if they don't help you pay for anything, you're going to be a dependent student. So what makes you an independent student? An independent student is someone who doesn't have to provide parental information on the FAFSA. So you are most likely an independent student if you will be 24 years or older by January 1st of the school year for which you're applying for federal aid. You are a independent student if you are married or separated but not divorced. And then you are an independent student if you will be working towards a master's or doctorate degree. If you have any children who receive more than half of your support, have any dependents other than children or a spouse who live with you and receive more than half of your support, are currently serving on active duty in the U.S. military, are a veteran of the U.S. military, at any time since you turned age 13, were both of your parents deceased, were you in foster care or were you a ward or dependent of the court? Are you an emancipated minor or are you in a legal guardianship as determined by the court? Are you an unaccompanied youth who is homeless or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? If you answered yes to any of those questions, you are most likely an independent student. If you answered no to all of these questions, then you will have to provide parent information on the FAFSA. So for example, one common scenario that we find often is you are living with a relative, you're living with a grandparent or an aunt and uncle, and they have legal custody of you. Legal custodianship is not the same thing as legal guardianship. And so it's important to note that even though someone has custody of you, it doesn't mean that they will be your parent on the FAFSA. You can go through an independent appeal, which is important to know, is if you know that you can't get any parent information and you don't have access to the information, you can do an independent student appeal saying, I am not in any of these situations that was asked on the FAFSA, but I definitely know that I am an independent student based off the following reasons, and then you can explain your situation. If you're an independent student, you don't need to provide parent information on the FAFSA, you just need to provide your own information. If you're a dependent student, you will need to provide parent information. One last thing about being independent. If you're an independent student for some reason, then just know that you don't have to create an FSA ID for one of your parents. It'll just be your own FSA ID. So let's say I am a dependent student and I do have to provide my parents' information on the FAFSA. Who are my parents? It's important to know that certain people in your life that you may claim to be your parent may not actually be your parent on the FAFSA. And so, for example, some of the people who are not your parents, unless they have legally adopted you, are widowed step-parents, grandparents, foster parents, legal guardians, older brothers or sisters, aunts or uncles. These people are not your parents unless they have legally adopted you, and therefore they cannot be on your FAFSA as a parent. And also, okay, so now that I know that I have to submit my parents' information on the FAFSA, how do I know whose information needs to go on it? If I live with both parents, or if my parents are separated, or for whatever situation that you're in. So we have this graphic up here that kind of explains who information needs to go on the FAFSA. So if your parents are married to each other, then you need to report both of your parents' income and information on the FAFSA. My parents are married, but they don't live together. If your parents are married and don't live together, they still need to provide information. You still need to provide both parents' information on the FAFSA. If my parents are married to each other, don't live together, and you only live with one of your parents for more than half of the year, then you can actually just report the information of one parent. And that parent will be the parent that you live with the most. So, for example, my parents are separated, but I actually only live with my mom. I live with my mom for about 8 months out of the year, and I live with my dad for the other 3 months. And so, or 3 4 months, so I need to report my mother's information because I live with my mom for the majority of the school, for the majority of the year. And let's see, the last one is report information on the FAFSA for the parent who provided more financial support over the past 12 months, and so on. So one last scenario is if your parent is remarried. If you're one of your parents remarried and you live with your step parent and your biological parent, you do need to provide the step parents' information if they are legally married. Let's say your mom or your dad lives with a partner, but they're not married, then you don't need to provide step parents' information, only if they are legally married. If you have any questions about this information, being an independent student, being a dependent student, who is my parent, who is not my parent, and you're confused about the graphics, please feel free to reach out to me, to a high school counselor, a college advisor at the local high school, or the financial aid officer at the college you're hoping to attend. So now we're going to discuss EFC, expected family contribution. The EFC, an expected family contribution, is determined by the U.S. Department of Education. This is the amount a family is expected to contribute for a student's education. It is determined on prior year tax information, and this is the way that a college determines how much need-based aid you qualify for. This is still not the final price you pay for college. So the EFC, what is it? Where do I find it? So once you've submitted your FAFSA, the very last screen will be, congratulations, Gladys, you've submitted your FAFSA. Towards the bottom of the page, or as you scroll down, you will see the 3 letters EFC. And next to the EFC, there will be a number. That number is supposedly your expected family contribution, and it's what the FAFSA and the Department of Education calculated as the money that your family can pay towards your college, the money that you can pay towards your college. And so a lot of colleges see this as the cost of attendance that they post on their website minus the EFC is the actual need that you have. So for example, cost of attendance at Cape Fear Community College, we had said was around $14,000 minus my EFC. For example, I submitted my FAFSA, my EFC ended up being $500. So my cost of attendance, which is $14,000 minus the expected family contribution, which is $500, equals my need. That means I still need to come up with $13,500 to pay for my college. That is the amount of money that I need to complete paying for all my tuition, fees, and books. Your need can be supplemented by your Pell Grant, by scholarships, by loans, to come up with that money. Whatever money you don't come up with will technically be you will have to pay that out of pocket. So let's say I get my Pell Grant, a scholarship, and I take out a loan and I come up with $12,000. And my EFC still is $500. So technically, I still need to come up with $500 extra dollars to cover my college education. I know that math can be super confusing, so I'm going to piece all of it together in just a second. So piecing everything together, attending a local community college. Like I said, my EFC turns out to be $500. Attending community college, cost of attendance annually is $5,000 at the local community college, and this is excluding my indirect costs. So I'm not using the $14,000 that I had specified earlier, that's what's posted on the community college website, but I'm excluding my indirect costs. So I'm excluding miscellaneous things, I'm excluding transportation, I'm excluding perhaps room and board. And so I'm only taking into account tuition, fees, books, and supplies. And so now I need to figure out everything else that I need to pay for. So my cost of attendance at the local community college is $5,000. My Pell Grant ends up being $4,500, and I get a scholarship of $200. What I'm actually going to be paying to the college is $300. This $300 isn't the $500 that I was supposed to be paying to the college. Again, EFC is supposed to be expected family contribution. This is what I'm supposed to be contributing to my college education. But because I got the Pell Grant and the scholarship, what I'm actually paying is $300, which is a little bit less than my EFC. And so with the EFC, it's based on a mathematical formula that the FAFSA creates. And for the most part, it's not the most accurate, and it's actually changing. So this year, 2021, the Department of Education has come out with a news release that the EFC is no longer going to be called the EFC. I think they're changing the language around what the EFC is, and they will also be changing the mathematical formula on the FAFSA. And with this change, it's actually going to help a lot more families get more money from the FAFSA or qualify for more things. So qualify for bigger Pell Grant amounts, qualify for more loans, which will help out the student pay for college. So FAFSA is going in the right direction with changing the language around the EFC. The very last thing we're going to be talking about is FAFSA verification. FAFSA verification is a very complicated process, and it needs to be completed as soon as you find out that you've been selected for FAFSA verification. So things to know about what is FAFSA verification. You are selected by the U.S. Department of Education when you submit your FAFSA. The Department of Education processes every single FAFSA that is submitted, and they are the ones that determine that you are selected for verification. And basically what verification means is that they need more information based off the information that you submitted on the FAFSA. The Department of Education, you don't send the information that they're verifying to the Department of Education. You send it to the college that you are going to be attending. So for example, I am informed by the colleges that I applied to that they need more information from me in order to get my financial aid package. So for example, I say I applied to 5 schools. I applied to 2 community colleges and 3 four-year universities. Each of these colleges will require additional information from me based on my FAFSA if I was selected for FAFSA verification. Colleges are by law required to obtain this information from me and from you, the student. And one important thing to know is that your college will not release your financial aid package to you until this verification process is complete. So what are some of the things that they can ask for? What are some of the things that they want to verify? Some of the things that the colleges need to verify is that the amount of people that you claim to live with on the FAFSA is also the amount of people you live with whenever you submit this extra information. So they may say, Gladys, can you please fill out this form telling us how many people you live with? Once I submit that form to the college, they're going to verify it next to my FAFSA application and make sure that the number matches up. So on the FAFSA, I say I live with 5 people. On the document form that they're going to send me to my email or to my student portal, I also need to submit that I live with 5 people. The information needs to be verified and it needs to match. Some other things that they may ask for are just verification that you did not work as a student in 2019, and that's why you didn't file a tax return. So those are some of the things that they verify. There's a couple of other things, but those are the main ones. If you worked and didn't work, if you filed or didn't file, how many people you live with, those are the most common. You want to make sure that as soon as you get this request of verification information, that you submit these forms as soon as possible to your college. Some tips to complete FAFSA verification are to complete it as soon as you know, because like I said, no financial aid information will be released to you until your verification is complete. So this means that even though I got accepted to all of the schools that I applied to, I won't know which one is the most affordable until I complete this verification process. I won't know if UNCW will actually be cheaper than Cape Fear Community College, or if UNC Pembroke will be cheaper than UNCW as I apply to all of these schools until I get my financial aid package. But like I said, I won't be able to receive my financial aid package until I complete my verification. And so you want to do it as soon as possible because financial aid packages take a very long time to process. So tips, complete it as soon as you know. Check your email that you provided to the college daily. So let's say you've already been accepted to all the schools you applied for and all of them give you a student email. You need to be checking that email daily to make sure that you're not missing any information that's being requested by you from the college. Last tip is seek assistance if you are unsure what to do. If you're not sure what all these forms and documents that are being requested by you mean or say, you want to make sure that you're asking for help. So places that you can ask for help, you can contact me. I'm a WIOA career advisor. I can help you with the FAFSA information. You can contact your high school counselor, a high school college advisor. You can contact the actual financial aid office of the college you're planning to attend. And just say, hey, I've just been accepted to your college. I really am confused about the FAFSA verification process. Can you help? And they should be able to help you as well. So that is all the information that I have on the FAFSA, and those are some of the FAFSA basics that you need to know when you're submitting your FAFSA application. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at gsanchez@edsisolutions.com. Or you can also contact Pender County Library and have them contact me. I am happy to help. And I thank you for your time and listening to this presentation. Thank you so much.